On a crisp autumn morning, I awoke to the breathtaking sight of my majestic castle, its towering spires and intricate stonework standing as a proud testament to generations of tradition and craftsmanship. Yet, as the day unfolded, murmurs of discontent began to stir in the nearby village, carried on the crisp autumn wind. Welcome to the channel. Subscribe if an Karen is allowed to judge your private property. Among the voices of dissent, one name emerged with striking clarity. Karen, a local critic known for her unyielding opinions and fiery temperament. With a determined stride, Karen arrived at the boundary of my property, her eyes fixed on the imposing silhouette of my castle. In a tone that mixed indignation with self-assuredness, she proclaimed that the grandeur of my castle was an affront to the natural landscape. Her words, sharp and uncompromising, resonated with a few of the nearby villagers who had grown wary of modern excess. Karen declared that the castle was too vast, its overwhelming presence distorting the gentle beauty of the countryside. She argued that the sheer scale of the structure disrupted the harmony of the landscape, casting an unwanted shadow over the fields below. Unbeknownst to her, every inch of the castle was a labor of love and a tribute to history, carefully designed to blend with nature rather than dominate it. As she spoke, her voice carried over the rolling hills, drawing the attention of passers-by and igniting a heated debate. I listened from a distance, astonished at the audacity of her claim and the fervor with which she delivered her critique. The local community, long divided on matters of aesthetic and preservation, began to take sides as whispers of the controversy spread. Some admired Karen's insistence on preserving the natural order, while others saw her words as a misguided attack on heritage and art. The air became thick with tension as villagers gathered at the edge of my property, their faces a mixture of curiosity and concern. I felt compelled to step forward, knowing that the legacy of my castle was too precious to be undermined by baseless accusations. However, before I could speak, Karen raised her voice again, challenging the very foundation of the estate's existence. She contended that in an era that demanded modesty and respect for nature, such opulence had no place. Her argument was laden with a sense of urgency, as if the future of the landscape depended on curtailing the castle's influence. As the debate intensified, I realized that Karen's words had struck a nerve, stirring long-held emotions among the villagers. They recalled tales of simpler times when the beauty of the land was measured by its natural splendor rather than human grandeur. The controversy quickly evolved into a fervent discussion about progress, heritage, and the delicate balance between the two. Some local elders recalled the history of the region with pride, defending the castle as a symbol of continuity and cultural richness. Others, swayed by Karen's impassioned rhetoric, argued for a return to a more understated way of life that honored the land without overwhelming it. In the midst of this growing storm, I felt a surge of responsibility to defend the legacy of my family and the artistry of the castle. I began to gather documents, photographs, and architectural plans that detailed the historical significance and careful integration of the estate with its surroundings. Every blueprint and letter of endorsement became a silent testament to the castle's rightful place in the landscape. Karen's relentless criticism, however, continued unabated as she roamed the grounds, her voice echoing against the ancient stone. Her impassioned declarations challenged not only the aesthetics of the castle, but also the very notion of what it meant to preserve history. The confrontation drew the attention of local officials, who arrived to assess the situation amid a flurry of media interest. Cameras flashed and reporters jostled for a closer look as the debate quickly spilled into the public arena. In the ensuing chaos, my castle, a symbol of enduring beauty and tradition, stood silent yet defiant against the tide of criticism. The unfolding drama captured the imagination of the community, sparking debates in town halls and on social media platforms alike. Neighbors, once content with the quiet splendor of our shared heritage, now questioned the boundaries between progress and preservation. The discourse became a microcosm of a larger cultural struggle, with the castle at its center as both a prize and a point of contention. I felt the weight of responsibility as the voices around me grew louder, each opinion adding a new layer to the unfolding narrative. The atmosphere was charged with uncertainty, as if the future of the landscape itself hung in the balance. Karen's adamant stance set the stage for a prolonged conflict, one that promised to test the limits of tradition and modernity. Even as I pondered my next move, it was clear that this was only the beginning of a battle that would challenge both public opinion and deep-seated values. The legacy of my castle, interwoven with the spirit of a land, now faced a trial by fire. A trial that would determine whether its grandeur could coexist with the natural beauty it so carefully embraced. With the morning sun waning and the echoes of Karen's accusations lingering in the air, I braced myself for the long and uncertain road ahead, knowing that the fate of my cherished estate was now a matter of public debate. In the wake of Karen's initial outburst, the dispute swiftly evolved into a contentious public debate that reverberated through every corner of the region. Local residents began to take sides, with some passionately supporting Karen's call for a return to modesty and others defending the castle as a proud emblem of heritage. The controversy ignited a flurry of public meetings and town hall discussions where community members debated the merits and drawbacks of monumental architecture in modern landscapes. A series of impassioned editorials appeared in local newspapers, each articulating divergent views on whether the castle's impressive scale enhanced or marred the natural beauty of the countryside. I found myself at the center of a media storm as reporters, bloggers, and television anchors clamored to capture every nuance of the unfolding saga. Every day, I was confronted with both praise and condemnation, as public opinion oscillated wildly between admiration for the castle's historical significance and dismay at its perceived excess. Legal experts were called upon to weigh in on the matter, and many affirmed that the castle was fully compliant with all architectural and environmental regulations. Despite the legal validation, the emotional intensity of the debate only grew, fueled by personal anecdotes and passionate rhetoric from both sides. Community leaders organized roundtable discussions to explore how development and conservation could coexist without compromising the area's intrinsic charm. At one such meeting, I presented detailed architectural plans and historical records, emphasizing that every design choice had been made with reverence for the landscape. Yet Karen's voice echoed persistently through the forums, her fervor undiminished as she argued that no amount of documentation could justify such an imposing structure. Her impassioned speeches drew significant attention, and soon she became a polarizing figure, celebrated by some and vilified by others. Local environmental groups joined the fray, raising concerns that the castle's massive footprint might disrupt the delicate ecosystems flourishing in the surrounding meadows. Their arguments were met with counterpoints from historians and architects who insisted that the castle was a masterpiece of integrated design, harmoniously blending with nature. As the controversy deepened, public opinion polls were conducted, revealing a near-even split among the populace, which only served to intensify the debate. I found solace in private consultations with experts who assured me that the castle not only respected the land, but also contributed positively to the region's cultural tapestry. Nevertheless, the persistent voices of dissent could not be ignored, and protest signs began to appear along the road leading to the castle. These signs, emblazoned with slogans decrying the monumental blight on the landscape, became both a symbol of resistance and a rallying point for like-minded residents. The ensuing public demonstrations drew media coverage that painted the conflict as a microcosm of the broader struggle between tradition and modernity. I attended several of these gatherings, not to confront the dissenters directly, but to understand the depth of their concerns and to seek a path toward reconciliation. During one particularly charged town hall meeting, impassioned speeches from both supporters and detractors created an atmosphere of intense debate and mutual misunderstanding. Local officials found themselves in the unenviable position of mediating between those who viewed the castle as a cultural treasure and those who saw it as an eyesore. Amidst the chaos, I maintained a dignified silence, carefully considering my words before offering measured responses that emphasized respect for all opinions. I was adamant that the castle was more than just a structure. It was a living repository of history, art, and the enduring spirit of my family's legacy. My efforts to articulate this vision were met with both applause and skepticism, as the public remained divided over the castle's impact on the environment. Amid the swirling controversy, several influential community figures emerged, urging a constructive dialogue that would bridge the gap between preservation and progress. These leaders organized a series of public forums aimed at fostering mutual understanding, inviting experts to speak on topics ranging from architectural conservation to sustainable development. I participated in these forums, sharing insights into the meticulous planning and care that had ensured the castle's harmonious integration with its surroundings. Despite my best efforts, however, the discourse remained fractious, with Karen continuing to be a vocal critic, her remarks laced with personal animosity and ideological fervor. Her relentless campaign against the castle not only amplified the community's divisions, but also cast a long shadow over the collective memory of our region. The conflict soon spilled over into digital spaces, where social media platforms became battlegrounds for heated debates and viral memes that caricatured both the castle and its detractors. Online, hashtags were created, some celebrating the castle as a beacon of heritage, others condemning it as an extravagant relic that ruined the natural vista. The digital discourse further polarized opinions, with each post and comment adding fuel to an already raging fire of public sentiment. Amidst this barrage of criticism and support, I sought legal counsel to explore any potential avenues for resolving the dispute through formal channels. Although the castle was legally sound and its construction fully compliant with local regulations, I felt compelled to protect my family's legacy from the corrosive impact of public discontent. I initiated a series of meetings with local authorities, aiming to demonstrate that the castle's design was not only permissible, but also a valuable asset to the cultural landscape. These discussions were fraught with tension, as officials balanced the legal merits of the case with the palpable emotional response of the community. Even as I defended the castle's right to exist in its full splendor, I acknowledged that the controversy had uncovered deep-seated concerns about the future of our local environment. The debate, now entrenched in both legal and ethical realms, promised to shape the discourse on heritage preservation and environmental stewardship for years to come. With mounting pressures from all sides and the fate of my cherished estate hanging in the balance, I braced myself for the next phase of this prolonged battle, aware that the ultimate resolution was still far from reach. On a clear winter morning, a decisive moment arrived that would settle the controversy once and for all. The local authorities, having meticulously reviewed all evidence, declared that my castle fully complied with every legal and environmental guideline. In a public hearing that drew an unprecedented crowd of community members and experts, officials announced that the castle's grandeur was not a blemish on the landscape, but rather an enhancement to our cultural heritage. Karen, now representing the faction of dissenters, was compelled to attend the meeting, her earlier fervor tempered by the weight of incontrovertible facts. During the proceedings, renowned architectural critics testified that the castle's design not only respected the natural contours of the land, but also enriched the local scenery with its historic elegance. Experts in environmental planning presented detailed reports showing that the castle's footprint was in harmonious balance with the surrounding meadows and woodlands. Public opinion, once sharply divided, began to coalesce around the notion that heritage and modern aesthetics could coexist without compromise. The council's decision, reached through a unanimous vote, was hailed as a resounding affirmation of the castle's rightful place in our community. As the verdict was announced, a wave of applause swept through the hall, signaling collective relief and jubilation among supporters. In that moment, I stepped forward to express my heartfelt gratitude to the community, emphasizing that my castle was more than just a structure. It was a living repository of history and art. I detailed how each stone and spire had been crafted with reverence for centuries-old traditions, embodying the spirit of our forebears. I stressed that the castle's integration with the natural landscape was achieved through thoughtful design and deliberate preservation efforts. Karen's impassioned rhetoric, once so forceful, now seemed diminished in the face of overwhelming evidence and expert testimony. With the council's decision firmly in place, the foundation was laid for a new era of cultural preservation and balanced development. Local newspapers and television stations broadcast the ruling, turning the once bitter dispute into a celebrated milestone for heritage conservation. The ruling not only vindicated my rights as the owner, but also reaffirmed the community's commitment to preserving its historic landmarks. In the days that followed, Karen was publicly urged to retract her baseless criticisms, and she eventually issued a formal apology that was met with mixed reactions. Her apology, though begrudging, underscored the inevitability of accountability when one challenges the collective will of the community. The castle's reputation was not only restored but elevated, as visitors began to appreciate its historical and aesthetic significance. Tour groups, historians, and art enthusiasts flocked to the estate, eager to experience its storied beauty firsthand. Community-led events and cultural festivals were organized on the castle grounds, transforming the once contentious site into a vibrant center of local pride. The transformation of public sentiment was evident, as even some of Karen's former supporters began to acknowledge the castle's positive impact on the region. Local lawmakers, inspired by the harmonious outcome, initiated a review of regulations to ensure that future disputes over heritage sites would be handled with fairness and transparency. Architectural scholars published articles praising the castle as a paragon of sustainable preservation, blending the old with the new in seamless continuity. The media, which had once sensationalized the controversy, now celebrated the decision as a triumph of culture and community over narrow-minded criticism. In every corner of the castle, from its towering ramparts to its tranquil inner courtyards, the echoes of history resounded with renewed vigor. I took a quiet moment each day to wander through the ancient halls, feeling a deep connection to the legacy that had been defended so vigorously. The resolution of the dispute sent a clear message throughout the region, that true heritage endures and will be protected by both law and public will. The experience, though arduous, strengthened my resolve to continue preserving the legacy of my family and our architectural heritage for future generations. The community's unified stance served as a potent reminder that beauty and history are collective treasures that deserve steadfast guardianship. Public celebrations were held in honor of the ruling, and the castle became a symbol of resilience against the forces of uninformed criticism. Neighbors and local artists collaborated on new projects that further integrated the castle's historic charm with contemporary cultural expressions. A sense of optimism and pride permeated the region, as the castle's survival became a rallying cry for cultural preservation across neighboring communities. The legal and public triumph set a precedent for resolving similar disputes, paving the way for a balanced approach to development and conservation. In private, I reflected on the long and winding journey that had led to this moment of vindication, feeling both humbled and empowered by the support of the community. I recognized that while challenges to heritage might arise, the collective spirit of preservation and respect for history would always prevail. As the sun set over the restored landscape, my castle stood unyielding, a timeless monument that had withstood both the test of time and the tempest of modern criticism. The once fierce opposition dissipated, replaced by a lasting legacy of cultural pride and a renewed commitment to safeguarding our historical treasures. In the end, Karen's attempts to diminish the castle's grandeur were rendered futile, and she, along with her misguided detractors, found out the hard way that true heritage is invincible.